Hello, I'm Askar Sheraliyev and you're watching the news from Kazakhstan. An 8th grader was killed in a schoolyard. During the fight with his peers, the teenager was stabbed in the chest. The school administration and the inspector refused to comment on the tragedy.
A 14-year-old boy was killed during the mass brawl at the school stadium in Pavlodar. Sasha Lihanov was stabbed by his schoolmate. The father of the 8th grader is still in a state of shock.
Someone called me from the school saying that my son is not feeling well. When I came over, he was already dead, his body lying on the bench where it was brought from the stadium.
Pupils recall that everything happened late in the afternoon. Boys exited the school for a fight and one of them had a knife. Nobody understood what happened next.
After the end of the 6th lesson, we went outside and the police was already there saying that a kid was stabbed to death.
The school's inspector and headmaster are avoiding journalists. Teachers say that they also never expected anything like that from the children. Both boys are from normal families and until yesterday there were no quarrels between them. A member of Pavlodar City Council, Askar Bakhralinov, says that the situation with juvenile crime is going out of hand. The number of children with police records is growing with each month.
Juvenile crimes have become more violent lately. Virtually every school in Kazakhstan has a record of murders, mass brawls and knife fights.
Last year, members of the City Council proposed to install surveillance cameras in schools, says MP Bakhralinov. Perhaps the tragedy could have been avoided if deputies' advice was followed.
In the meantime, a new wave of protest has been spreading in West Kazakhstan for the second day. Another strike of the oil industry workers employed by Kazmunaygas Prospecting and Production Company is underway in Zhanaozen. On Thursday, 3,000 people took part in a rally near the bus station Zhanaozen. The workers were demanding to nationalize the company and dismiss the current management of the local branch of Kazmunaygas. They also appealed to the Prime Minister, MPs, as well as the leadership of the national company and Fond Samruk-Kazana, asking them to visit the problematic region. As of right now, about 20 activists began an open-ended hunger strike. So far, the city authorities refused to comment on the situation. 8,000 people supported our demands. The administration didn't talk to us, but not the director, who fell sick all of a sudden. East Kazakhstan region has an emergency of its own, although this time natural. Weather forecasts about the possible floods are coming true earlier than anticipated. In Semey, the water has already covered several private yards. Currently, the draining works are continuing in the yard, say officials. The press service of the Regional Emergency Ministry Department explains that the clogged drain channels led to the flooding, which was worsened by hard frosts and ice crusts. Meanwhile, during a meeting with journalists, the governor of East Kazakhstan region, Berdebek Saparbayev, actually blamed Semey residents for the disaster. Everything that happened in the village Mirny near Semey was done by local villagers themselves. They didn't remove garbage and dumps on time. As a result, the channel and underbridge were clogged up and the water had nowhere else to escape. After being caught following 6 years of living abroad and escaping the justice, the notorious ex-banker Urazaly Yerzhanov will finally face a trial in Kazakh court.
The ex-chairman of Nouriz Bank, Urazaly Yerzhanov, will finally appear in Almaty court after 6 years of international police search and the arrest by Russian authorities in Moscow. Yerzhanov is accused of forming an organized criminal group and pocketing $30 million. He was first arrested in 2004 when he said that officials were laundering money through Nouriz Bank. According to Serik Abdurrahmanov, the statement was never officially confirmed.
I think Urazaly Yerzhanov was caught now because the political winds have changed their direction.
Nevertheless, in 2004, during the meeting of the Senate, MP Tolen Tukhtasynov read the banker's letter to the president, where he asked to stop the pressure from the authorities. Still, the bank's operation was seized in 2004, and by 2005, the now exiled banker revealed his financial institutions was nothing more than a bubble.
I asked him about the story, and he honestly told me that Tasmagambetov and his people entered the company through fictitious people. $10 million were invested and there were attempts to develop the bank for some time.
Later, Abilov recalled the details of that conversation in an open letter. Yerzhanov told him that Imangali Tasmagambetov demanded his money back. He also told banker Yerzhanov and businessman Abilov that $10 million weighed 100 kilograms. This is much more than was inside the infamous Xerox box carried out of the Russian White House during the events of 1993 in Moscow. The opposition says that in the case with Nouriz Bank, there would have to be at least 20 such boxes. While the fate of Yerzhanov has not been decided yet, the state prosecutors have already made up their minds about Mukhtar Jakishev and Talgat Kastaubayev.
On Friday, during the judicial pleadings in the Sararka District Court of Astana, they asked for 14 years in a maximum security prison for the former and 6 years of regular prison for the latter.
Apart from expensive imprisonment terms, the prosecution asks to prohibit Jakishev from assuming any state position in the next 7 years and also to retract his order of merit Kurmet. In addition, victims asked for a compensation of the damages allegedly caused by Kazatomprom in the amount of about $800,000. According to attorney Bisikeyev, he and the defendant will be able to respond on March 9th. Should the new circumstances come up in the case, the court will have the right to reopen the investigation. Following the presentation by the prosecutor's office, we came to a conclusion that Mukhtar Jakishev still hopes that somehow the verdict will be indeed legitimate and the court will deliver a legitimate decision.
Mukhtar Jakishev's uncle has appealed to the president of Kazakhstan, Nursultan Nazarbayev, pleading him to intervene in the trial of the ex-head of Kazatomprom. The letter was published by the internet portal Respublika Info.
In particular, Yersin Jakishev insists on medical examinations of the former head of the national company and vouches for his nephew, quote, "I, as a senior of the clan who was like a father to him and who worked for 45 years in science for the benefit of our country, I earnestly ask you, dear Nursultan Nazarbayev, to end this 10-month-long torture of an ill and innocent man who has done a lot for our country and whom you yourself have awarded with an order."
Another famous trial is about to be launched in Almaty. A local district court accepted the claim of the former minority shareholders of Alliance Bank. On Thursday, they filed a suit against the Financial Supervision Agency and bank's board chairman Maksat Kabashev.
A group of minority shareholders demand to recognize the forced redemption of Alliance's shares by the Fond Samruk-Kazana as illegal. The party's interviews are scheduled for March 12th and the preliminary hearing for March 24th. Previously, on the eve of the new year, 100% of Alliance's bank stake was sold by the regulator to the state for 1 tenge, effectively making the state holding company the only shareholder of the financial institution.
A U.S. court has recognized the legitimacy of the process of restructuring the debts of another major Kazakh bank, the BTA. The order was issued by the Southern District Court of New York, working on the cases of financial insolvency.
The court decision protects the property of the bank during the process of debt restructuring from creditors' claims on the territory of the USA. This means that in fact it protects the Kazakh bank from potential debt repayment suits from its creditors. Previously, such decisions were made by the High Court of England and Wales, as well as Solomon District Court of Kiev in Ukraine.